Reviewing the agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda as written? Do I have a second? All in favor, say aye. Okay, the meeting minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review the meeting minutes? Do I have a motion to adopt the minutes as written? Do I have a second? All in favor, say aye. Sorry. Any opposed? Okay. All right, do we have public comment? Okay, moving along. Before we get into the vice chair election, I just want to say welcome to Scotty and Terry. They are our newest members. Would you guys like to say something about yourself? Introduce yourself real fast.
Yeah, I'm gonna need about 5 minutes. I'd like to talk later in the meeting, or
We can save it. Let's save it for the end of the meeting if that's okay then. Okay. That sounds good. Well, for now, welcome. Okay, so we're going to move on to the vice chair election. As we know, Kim has moved on to city council, so we have an opening to be the vice chair. I know that JJ has offered to be to step in to that role, but she is not able to make it tonight. However, if there's somebody else who also wanted it, she was perfectly happy to let somebody else have it. So do I have anybody who would like to step into that role? Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that was easy. Okay, let's go ahead on to the Parks Master Plan work. I came up fast.
Evening.
Good evening.
Darcy Rosinsky. I'm with the consultant firm MIG, and
You talking to?
yes, I can. Better? Here we go.
There we go.
All right. Thanks for having me. I just drove from Chehalis, so I'm a little buzzy right now. So you'll have to bear with me as my brain clicks into where I'm at and who I'm with. Appreciate your time tonight. I am here to give you an overview of where we are at in the Parks Master Plan update process. And to that end, you have some materials for this presentation. If you haven't plowed through those and haven't absorbed everything, hopefully what I'll give you tonight is an overview of what you have and some of the key items, key conclusions from that work. I'm happy to take any questions you might have, or definitely looking for feedback, definitely looking for corrections or things you would like to kind of illuminate from the work, make sure that we're aware of as city staff and the consultant team, kind of moving the Parks Master Plan update forward. But I don't have a lot of time with you tonight either. So I'm going to try to kind of rush through it. Stop me if you have questions. Does not need to be a formal presentation, but I do have some slides. So what you have before you as a needs assessment and a couple of interesting attachments, one of which is some public outreach summary information, as well as a parks inventory, and that's the two attachments to the needs assessment. We can go ahead and forward the slides. Kind of the table of contents mirrors the needs assessment, and again, I'll just kind of go through a couple slides to those table of contents items. So the next slide, oh boy, yeah, forgot about this slide being a little bit hard to read. The text is small, but basically a 5-phase project. We're in the second phase where we're looking at your system and identifying some areas where you may want to focus on moving forward. So we are going to be moving into drafting vision statements, some updated parks and recreation and trails related policy statements. Again, kind of getting into the language of how you envision your system going forward, as well as looking at your development code and kind of moving into a proposed system map. So before we get to phase three, let's back it up to phase two, which we're doing today. Had an advance the slide there, Isaac. So basically, this document that you have summarizes your existing park system. It's research that we kind of conducted in phase one of this project. Again, you had sort of an some materials based on our initial parks tour, some initial observations of all the facilities that we visited. We've moved that now into some more formal documentation. It includes a profile of the community. So again, who are these parks for? Who are these programs for? So a little bit of an idea of really who you're planning for. And then an analysis of what you have. Is it good enough, or how is it meeting your community's needs? Again, not a value or judgment statement necessarily, but really given what we've seen, we can communicate that to you all and to the community. You can decide going forward how you want to augment or improve upon or add to. Um, so the next slide is just a summary of the community profile. A lot of this information is coming from your housing needs analysis work, for which there was a buildable lands analysis done, a projection of the 20-year population, for Scappoose. The biggest takeaway really is this is a growth scenario, right? You're actually you're a growing community, and you're trying to find how you can best provide parks facilities for that, both your existing and also your future population. You're expected to grow by about 2,500 people in a 20-year time frame. That's about almost 1,300 households. And not only are you looking 20 years out, you're actually, as a community, looking at a 50-year time horizon. So you're looking even beyond your current urban growth boundary, your current city limits, and looking like, well, where are we going to grow beyond even that 20 years? So you have a lot of decisions to make as far as providing facilities, which parks are one of those. Just another few observations. You're a fairly young community. You have households that are the size that indicate that there are kids involved in those households. So all that's sort of giving you an indication of like, okay, who are we planning this park system for? The next slide is just a summary of the community engagement activities that we've done since that has happened. Say we done that have happened since we last met back in October. Some of you have been directly involved with those. You can maybe share your observations. But we did a series of what we called stakeholder interviews. Um, Not that anyone has a stake necessarily, but it was more trying to get some diverse, trying to get more focused conversations with a diverse group of community members. So we did a handful of those, myself and Huel, just kind of I wouldn't say well, there was a few one-on-one, but more small group discussions, trying to get, some specific kind of perspectives. And we have a summary of that in attachment A, so you can kind of see some of the comments that came out from those conversations. Um, let's see, from those, we heard access to nature was very important. So Scappoose has some very distinct natural features. Folks definitely felt like those were things to be celebrated, highlighted, really kind of a value almost of the community. Inclusivity and access, again, making a system that's available to everyone was important. Couple of the focus areas where comments were really prevalent was Crown Z Trail, Chapman Landing, Commerce Park property. So again, that kind of those natural areas, access to nature was a big theme. In addition to the stakeholders conversations, we had 3 what we called pop-up events or activities, um, where we had boards with a dot exercise and a kind of an opportunity to communicate with folks kind of on a one-on-one. Was the questions on the boards were a little bit simplified from what we ended up using for a community service, but it was survey, but it was an opportunity really to get people interested, get people knowledgeable about the fact that we helping that the city was updating the parks master plan, and also directed people to the survey. And of that community survey, um, that ran for the month of November into December, and that was really a successful feedback kind of mechanism, if you will. There was over 900 visitors or participants with- on that survey, and over 700 completed surveys. So not everyone went to the survey and completed it. Some people picked out certain things that they wanted to talk about. There was lots of comments, for example. And again, there was some really consistent themes coming forward as far as natural areas, trails being important, activities such as walking and biking, things that could be accommodated on trails was a priority. And serving teens and children also was one of those themes that came forward from the survey respondents. So let's go to the next slide. Um, Part of this work is just inventorying what you have currently, and a description of what types of parks you have. So the descriptions are very similar to your current plan. Those haven't really changed very much. Um, the uh, the intent really is to really describe what the purpose, the intent, the size, the use, the types of facilities available, just really to give a good inventory of what the city currently has. And that allows you to kind of make some decisions moving forward. You're like, oh, well, that's a community park, and community parks typically have these things, and we have most of those things, but maybe we'd like these others as well. And that would be consistent with that typology. So it's a planning tool. Um, let's see. I think we can go to the next slide. We also did a parks access analysis from the earlier housing needs analysis, your buildable lands inventory. We know where your residential, zoning is. We know where your current and planned residential areas are going to be. We know where your current parks are, right? And we also know that having proximity, being able to walk to a park, is not only a very typical metric for parks planning. It's also something that your city council has as a priority, to have a 10-minute walk access, if you will. I was going to say walk shed, but it's more just access to a park within a 10-minute walking distance. Something I could clarify with the analysis is the shaded areas are what's covered, if you will. So you've got a lot of parks kind of central to the city, central in the city. The greenish area is like very well covered. People can get to parks easily. Um, the circled areas are where you really can't today. Um, so that's what this map is showing. And the access, it isn't just the crow flies. It's really, can you get there with a street or a trail? So the Vista property right now, for example, is pretty isolated. It's tough to get there or get into there. I think that's all I wanted to talk about there. Again, pretty clear to see where you are underparked, and that's important information. So the next slide shows the park level of service analysis. And again, this is a key metric for determining sort of the sufficiency of your parkland. Again, very typical metric used for parks planning. It's a ratio of acres per 1,000 residents. Your current plan has the same describes the same type of methodology. What this analysis really showed was that the current level of service kind of metric that you've adopted, you're not really meeting that today, and it only gets worse in the future, basically, and as you get more population. So what we're recommending is a proposed guidelines for your level of service. Again, it's just a planning tool. It's like, well, if we want to meet this number of acres per 1,000 residents, then we'll have to do some things. We'll have to get some new parkland, for example, which is what's shown one of the further columns, the current need in acres. Then the column after that is the future net need in acres in 2043. So we're projecting, going forward that there is going to be a deficit if again you use this particular level of service proposed guideline. The good news is that you have a lot of undeveloped parkland. So the two columns, sorry, two rows that are in gray are the undeveloped parkland. And we could have made that one row, but we split out Vista because Vista is a lot of acreage. It definitely can satisfy some of the future net acre needs. Um, but you also, by this metric, don't actually need it. So what we've done with Commerce and Grabhorn is we've taken the acreage and we've put it to satisfying the community park deficit on the top row there, as well as the special use sites. The Commerce Drive property could satisfy that future need. You could also use Vista and satisfy that future need. It's certainly a choice.
So where's this guideline? Where's this guideline come from? I mean, is it a national guideline or where's it from?
We have some information in the document that kind of shows where Scappoose kind of falls within sort of typical national guidelines. Um, you currently have a level of service kind of target in your current plan. It's really just trying to show target. Okay? And you can change that target. And if you adjust the target, you could be fine, right? And then I think maybe to your point, well, not to your point, but to illustrate kind of like, well, what does this all mean? There are some national outcomes that you can look at to see kind of like, well, we're doing okay for a community our size.
Well, could we compare other Oregon towns of our size and see both the amenities list as well as acres? Because it's not just acres. And then secondarily, like Vista is a kind of a cavernous ravine, so we really can't do much with it. It's going to be a natural area. And then Cathead, which I'm sure is Commerce, is a swamp. I mean, so we really couldn't do much over there either. So while it's nice to have those acres on the list, their their usability is questionable.
Right, and there are the park types as well. So that's special use sites, Vista, Commerce Drive, and those areas are very impacted by just natural resources that again have value for other reasons.
If you don't mind. One of the council goals, the actual goal for parks is to create a diverse park system, and part of their goal that was expressed was to create a variety of types, just all, but also parks too.
Understood, but like for instance, Cathead, it might be too expensive to develop because it's swampy. And while it's nice to keep it natural, so to speak, even accessibility, restrooms, etc., it could be very difficult over there. It just should be noted.
And I would say that Cathead was donated to the city by the developer. It was actually part of the annexation of that 400 acres to the city. And really the contemplated use was just a trail around there with maybe a bench. Like you say, it has limitations, but it does have nice open space opportunities.
Let's see. Oh, the other thing to note too here is the neighborhood parks, and the deficit there. Again, just looking at your adopted guideline, the proposed guideline is a little bit different. But again, I think kind of any way you slice it, you really are going to be um, having a deficit of neighborhood parks. And I think that previous map kind of showed that as well, given your residential neighborhoods and your planned future residential growth. So, and just a planning tool. It's not dictating that you do anything with this information per se, except consider it. Go to the next slide.
To say about those neighborhood parks, if you look at the city, they never even have a park to park. They didn't have a park commission until 5 years ago, and all the areas that you don't see a park is areas that have already been developed fully, and so that's really complicated to try and go in if you have a fully developed area and add a park. So that's probably why you don't see them. There's some opportunities, but real limited. So
That's come up in staff conversations as well. Right? And that's one of the challenges moving forward on kind of what to do with this information, right? Where are those areas that the city can make some changes? Again, put some energy or resources towards. We're going to talk about partnerships a little bit tonight. So, kind of like, okay, we have a lot of information now. What are we going to do moving forward? And the next step is to come up with some policy language that suggests some of the directions you might be heading towards. And coming back to you with that language, like, yeah, that's sounding right. And then the step after that is then, okay, then what is the system and how do we make that system come to fruition? Get ahead of myself. So the rest of these slides really are just lists of opportunities that we've noted in the document itself, and they're mostly in the text boxes. So under each of these categories, such as trails, we'll have a little bit of exposition or background of what we heard from the community or what we've observed in your current system, and then some opportunities for discussion and really your feedback of like, yep, that sounds right from everything we know to date. That sounds like the right direction, or maybe that's not, kind of a dead end, or here are some of the challenges with this quote unquote opportunity. So again, sort of our professional observations as well as discussion with staff as influenced and informed by community input to date, what these are. Let's see, what can I talk to you about this? So I lost my train of thought. I think we can keep going. The trails, one thing to kind of note with that is these connections are to parks. So park to park, they're within parks, how you get around the park once you're there. The regional trail system was something that has come up, like through Ground Z, but even connecting south and through to Forest Park, for example, in Portland. So there's a lot of things going on here that we've heard a lot of positive feedback about, but it's a little bit it's kind of all encompassing when we talk about trails. So go ahead and
I've got just a quick comment. I assume walking is not the only transportation, but bicycling as well.
It depends. Right? We're talking about the Cathead property and opportunities there. We've heard a boardwalk, for nature viewing. That might not be conducive to anything but actually hiking boots or tennies. So, right, it would depend on the facility and kind of where in your system it was.
Yeah, I would assume just the first heading up there just mentions walking and probably more meant as time will
next slide has to do with uh, really acquiring land and looking at what we've um, identified as gaps in your system, particularly looking out in your growth areas and how to accommodate recreation needs in those areas. So location is a big consideration. New housing west of Highway 30 and outside of city limits and the urban growth boundary. Again, how are those folks gonna kind of be serviced by your facilities and by your programs? See, we can probably go to the next slide unless there's questions about this. Um, Go to the next slide. Facilities. There definitely is an interest in improving access to nature, um, to having more. I would say passive recreational opportunities such as hiking and walking and nature viewing, etc. And on sort of the opposite end of the spectrum, there's also a big interest in the community for active uh, opportunities. So fields and courts and pickleball and things like that. This is just even by the text on the slide, you can see there's a lot of interest in those types of facilities. So trails, sports facilities, indoor recreation has come up as well. Places for gathering inside, and really the trick is determining sort of that optimal mix and taking advantage of the properties and the areas you have currently. um, Another thing kind of to when I'm talking about optimal mix, I was thinking of Grabhorn, and you're in the throes of determining really what the best use for the Grabhorn property is. Lots of different ideas about that. The three um, site plans that I've looked at, I think that you've been considering, they all have some kind of active use as part of them. Um, what One thing that we've observed as a consultant team is that none of those options really take full advantage of the stream and the natural area through the or on the edge of the property. So there's a real opportunity. It's quite a big site. It's tabula rasa right now, right? It's a blank slate, pretty much. Again, um, and how that facility is programmed, as we noted earlier, can help address a deficit in your community park land needs. It could also be an opportunity for nature viewing and access to nature. It could also be an opportunity to have a field or another basketball court. Some decisions to be made there. And the idea is that as part of this process, you would fold in the preferred option for that park. Not there yet, but that's the idea. So next slide. Connections to nature. We've talked quite a bit about that already. Again, just really, many people have commented just how special Scappoose is because of the natural resources that are part of the park system today. Um, Really, how you take advantage of that and provide access to those areas. Um, all I need there. The next slide is staffing and funding, and we've identified just of basic information, some budget information, your existing staffing levels, funding sources. We're going to get into that much more as part of the Parks Plan update. So more information will be forthcoming as far as other funding opportunities and how you might, deal with maintenance and operations, and have the staff to really fully program and take care of your parks. But just again, observations, you have a pretty low budget, you have a pretty low staffing level. So, and that of course is pronounced or illuminated by the fact that you have a lot of vacant parkland that you could be doing something with. People want to do something with it, but that's going to take some resources. So that's where your prioritization and really where some of this policy language is going to come into play, right? You're going to start defining, where you what you want your system to be, and then prioritizing, the real dollars that are going to have to go into getting you to that ideal. And then the partnership slide is my last second to last slide. You don't have to do it all on your own as a city or even a community. I mean, you do have other entities in your community that are providing for recreation and parks needs, or activities and or activities. So we've just identified, county parkland and continue to work with the county, um, both within city limits, but also for the community, for call Scappoosians, your your citizens to be able to access, county facilities, and then just agency collaborations, where you can find them, with other entities that are um, doing programming and providing for events and recreational opportunities in your community. So, with that, the next steps, like I said, we'll look at the policy language, start investigating any barriers and or ways your um, municipal code, your subdivision ordinance, everything that kind of plays into how you might um, mm, coordinate with future development to be getting, either land set asides or, um, you know, providing for opportunities in growth areas, for example. Um, yeah, and then start really looking at what your future system might look like. So that's all I have as far as updates.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
On the results of the survey, I didn't see any place listed where it said interest in the rec center. No interest or,
Yes, there is interest in an indoor facility, and sometimes swimming pool comes up. Definitely recreation, like indoor recreation. I'm racking my brain as far as the survey question that would get at that. I know that through our stakeholder interviews and I think even the pop-up event respondents, definitely that was something that was identified as of interest.
It was definitely in the pop-up events.
Yes.
For sure. And I felt like I saw it in one of the surveys as well, and in the stakeholder interview. So it is definitely in there.
As a point to that, we ran a rather large pool survey to look at the development of a pool, and from council's perspective, that's pretty much put to bed as a
Mhm.
starter at this point. There wasn't any interest in funding something like that. Um, just from a staff and city perspective. So when we look at that, our guidance from council was that's not a starter. But that was
I don't think we should keep that as like a end all be all.
I have
This
to
is a-
as staff. My
This is a 50-year plan, so,
This is a parks master plan that is not 50 years, but
okay, but still, if we artificially look at history, we'll never do anything. So maybe today, no, but if we continue to ask people, remember, it's gonna take a long time to ever get money together and actually get it built. We shouldn't artificially just kill it. If we should keep asking, and we should let people their voices be heard, and then decide. Because if every year we came into it and go, well, we know that didn't work because we did a survey last year, well, then we're never going to go anywhere.
I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying that like my staff's direction from council is to not pursue that.
All I'm saying is that I think we should just keep an open mind. We should keep listening, and we should echo back what we hear.
And I would say that there's gonna be a lot of things that are gonna come up that even a rec center, I mean, that's probably gonna be cost prohibitive short term. But I know that there's a real aspiration in the community. I think we all know we need one. Got the senior center, which is kind of filling a little bit of that void. But, maybe you put that as a at the end of the report, is a long-term goal that, that we look at. I agree that it'd be nice, but financial reality is another thing.
Right. We do cover it in the needs assessment, and have a bit of a, basically identifying that there's an interest. There's an interest in providing for the senior citizens as well. And that was mentioned, I think, in one of the stakeholder interviews, like, indoor recreation, pools, facilities for Tai Chi, et cetera. That would be really beneficial to provide for the older demographic and the community. Um, we also have I think it's a footnote, kind of saying what a community center would typically, like a population based community center would typically serve. Some indication again of to the magnitude of that type of facility and the cost of that type of facility. We certainly have some information from other communities. I know that we've worked in Sherwood, for example, that has partnerships with the YMCA and has several indoor facilities. So we have kind of have higher level cost estimates from other communities. And a lot of that is just going to point you to like that's going to be very expensive. And then you'll have to just think about priorities, right? So I don't think it's. I mean, from my perspective as a consultant, we report what we've heard the community say, and we have some indication that an indoor facility would be desirable. Um, but uh, we don't have a real indication from the size of the community that it's something that's going to be realistic. So
Right.
we can bring it forward.
I'm just saying is I think we shouldn't be filtering our comments. Because the middle school we're going to be building a new middle school, and then we have that property over there, and there's already a building with a gym and
Gyms.
yeah, 2 gyms and all this other stuff. And if we suppress that, now, well, that's not going to help us as opposed to just listening to people, letting them be heard, and then when they talk about what are we going to do with the middle school property, we might already have people that's like interested. We know what their needs are. I look at the high school field. I heard for years, oh, we can't put turf in. We can't put turf in. It's too expensive. Blah 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 blah. And it finally took the citizens to raise up and like make it happen, and it happened fast. And we raised over 100 grand in a very short time. So I think we can do it. I just don't think that we should be looking at our past and going because it didn't work last year, and maybe it was because how we worded it in some of our outreach, how expensive it was going to be, and all this other stuff. I think we just have to continue to listen to our citizens and also to dream a little bit, and then be open-minded when opportunities arise.
I agree. I would state that regarding that survey, we not inflate or deflate those numbers that were presented were.
I know, Isaac, I don't need to get into it, but we also inflated the cost of what it would be every year. I mean, that is a fact.
I would like to move on from this point. We can discuss this at a later time if we're going to keep this meeting going.
That's really all I have. And again, take a look at what if you haven't already, or if you need my assistance to kind of find where some of that information is, I'm happy to do that. But take a look at how we've kind of categorized or characterized what we've heard from the community, and if there are any questions about that, or if you feel like it's not reflective of what the survey said, please let me know, and we can address that. And I am looking for feedback. Again, things that could be clarified, things that you definitely feel like are not sufficiently emphasized, right? Because we are looking forward to kind of honing in on and how are you going to prioritize, of all the things you could do, what are the things that you can most afford to do, but also most want to do. So you would be looking for funding for specific things. So there's so much good information, and really it's just reflective of the system that you have, the facilities you have already, the land you have. There's just vast opportunities. Really, you'd say the sky's the limit, except really it's always the budget's the limit. So, luckily we're not getting into that tonight. So it's nice to dream about all the things that really could happen. And I would urge you to kind of look at what's bubbling up based on the community feedback that we had today, because really it's quite an extraordinary amount of people who participated in the survey. They're also the youth voices are coming through with the pop-up events, two of which were held at schools. So that's been very interesting to kind of see. Maybe not everybody wants a pump track or a bike skills track, but it is neat to see that. And again, you do have a population that's a little bit younger. So um, anyway, those are my comments. Hopefully that was helpful. Rambled a little bit. Time for some dinner.
I'd like to add one comment.
Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, so I'd like to see a little more work done on like a trail plan that is a connection to the quadrants of our city. So you have the trail that goes through the South Scappoose Creek, but basically a way to connect via bike or walking, east, west, north, and south. And remember, we can use transportation dollars or something like that as well. So our grants. So like I've seen other cities where it's like, okay, if you want to go from this place to this place and you don't want to, drive, how are you going to get there? I'd like to see a little more interest in that here.
And I believe your transportation system plan did also consider that, and you do have forgetting the proposed park. I'm sorry, the proposed trail that goes east west. Sorry, I'm so tired. Goes north south and connects your parks kind of on the west side of town.
That's the South Scappoose Creek Trail.
Right. Yes, thank you.
Right.
Right. And
That's
so
kind
that
of-
was part of your transportation system plan. And again, the multimodal aspect of that type of plan does arguably a better job of really identifying those safe routes for connectivity for bikes and pedestrians. Um, you've had the comment before, and I'm definitely writing it down again. To have the connection between parks is also very important, but we do get into those dotted lines on the map that deal with right of way and sort of, you know, in street type of conditions. We start getting really far afield into your transportation system. And that's where it's sort of hard to define, like, okay, we're getting beyond our kind of our ken into more of the modeling and really even level of service for non-motorized modes. Right? So your TSP didn't really get into a level of service, if I remember correctly, but next gen TSPs definitely do. And connecting up activity areas, including your services of that. So see what we can do.
Thank you.
Question.
Yes.
So I don't know if we can bring the phases up again, but I'm not sure if your answer, Paul, would be in the phases as you guys go along. And my other question is, we have this in our inbox, Isaac presentation.
Yes.
Presentation.
Yeah, we do.
It came with the whole meeting packet with the
Okay.
agenda as well.
I was wondering. So I'm wondering if that's probably down the line, create more of a plan, action plan.
The
Phase
proposed system map, yeah, phase 3. Bring up.
Yes. Mike, you have a comment?
Yeah, just real quickly. I was just going to say that I'm really excited about this process and the fact that, to be honest with you, a lot of this is kind of repeat for me because I worked with Joel and we created the first master plan. There wasn't a master, well, there was one from 1979, and then really a short period of time, we added like 4 parks in 6 years. And I got to tell you, I was frustrated when I left here because we didn't finish the work. So I'm really excited about working with y'all to do that. And I hope that my history on a lot of these properties, I can tell you the history of how we got there on all of them, not to tell you how you should develop it, but just we got here. But this is really gonna be fun. And I think one of the most important parts of this process is be to try and figure out how do we fund our parks? Because
Yeah.
we really don't do a very good job of that. And that's our biggest challenge to accomplish the dreams that we have. So just want to throw that out.
Great. Thank you, Mike. Any additional questions? So just to clarify, just as to kind of package things up, if we have your goal for us right now is to review this extensively. If we have any feedback, if we want more clarification on more information, to contact you. Would you like us to save it till the next meeting? Would you like us to email you?
If you could provide it to Isaac.
We can do that.
Kind of package up comments
Okay.
for us. A lot of this information is going to go into your plan.
Mhm.
So I might not revise this document, but rather make sure that either that correction or that, emphasis is forwarded. It really is still a planning tool at this point. So again, if things are incorrect or we're not bringing something forward that you feel like, wait a second, didn't we have a lot of comments on that? It sure seems like it from your, public involvement summary.
Yeah.
Yeah. Point those things out.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that that's the way to go. And I can definitely let you know at the next meeting if anything substantial has changed or if, we do need to put out another version, we can. But I would rather spend the energy moving forward,
Yes.
unless there's just something,
Glaring.
yes,
And will you be at the February meeting? Wonderful.
plan.
Okay. Wonderful.
Great.
Right. Well, thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you very much.
Okay. We'll be moving on to the team agreement.
Want me to put that up?
Oh,
Do you want me to put?
yes, please. Is it in this packet? It's in the back one? Oh,
Back.
okay, perfect. Okay, so this is our updated team agreement. Did everyone have a chance to read it earlier today? Or as when you received the agenda? Now, we can all take a minute to peruse it.
Did you want me to?
Yeah, we can. This will be, we will be adopting this. We had slightly updated wording, but nothing too significant.
The only updates really from our perspective were at the bit at the bottom, the general section here. We're just kind of referencing some updates that were made to the bylaws this fall that really just kind of addressed conduct and.
Okay, do I have a motion to adopt the updated team agreement as written?
Can also discuss and change.
Oh, or any changes or anything we'd like to discuss?
Your team.
Well, it is. Do we all agree to our team agreement? Yes, okay. Do I have a motion to adopt this as our team agreement? Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. City update.
Okay, so generally in parks, not a whole lot's happening. It's the wet season after all. It's really hard to get equipment out there. There's not a lot of good days. Developments, and most of our efforts right now at the city are focused around the master plan. Parks. We did receive some information from Columbia County and St. Helens this week. They're putting in a grant to the Oregon Parks and Recreation Department, I think, for a rather large grant to start developing trail between Scappoose and St. Helens. It literally had to be done as of today, so we bring it to anybody for look or to talk to them about it. So we sent a support letter. We're not sure where that's going to go, but they're asking for a 30% design is what they're trying to get to, which is kind of an odd number. Typically with a plan, you do a 10% design first. So they didn't send us plans. They just asked for a letter of support and asked for some financial buy-in. As things stand right now, we're still gathering information on what exactly they're writing in this grant. But we are going to support them as a partner. That's something that has been identified multiple times as something that is wanted by multiple communities in the region. So we just sign a letter of support. See how that happens.
So is Casey in charge of that since it's,
Cases at the county, yeah. Yeah, and this actually came from the St. Helens. So they were asking Columbia County and the city to partner since it goes through the county. That ends on both sides. So the city of St. Helens is like the primary grant writer. There was developments in the future.
I think that's an exciting development. I think a lot of people would use that.
Yeah, we're hoping that that's
Where it's gonna go. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I think that was one of our concerns. You know, we really were under the gun in terms of trying to get something signed and out, and there wasn't a whole lot of information sent over. And you know, our questions are, how much is this going to cost? If this is tying us into financial contributions in the future, because there's staff can't make that decision. That's the council decision. You know, we can only do so much. You know, what does that look like for how do we be involved in planning? We get to talk with you about it. Do we have a voting voice, or are we just, so we're giving you money that, you know? So there's a lot of questions about where, how, when, why, how much this cost, and about 30% design, because that's kind of an odd target. I mean, as you know from Grabhorn, right, we're targeting 10%. That gets us in the door for grants for construction. I'm not trying to attack their plan. I'm just saying I don't have information and there are questions.
Okay.
I have questions about that.
I do have a question about Grabhorn. Is there some kind of, she said something about 3 different plans for Grabhorn, and that's part of my interest as far as what my direction.
Yeah, we can send you some information. It's on the website. We've been through this committee with quite a bit with that property. So there are currently, there was a plan. The community didn't like it. Took it back to the Parks Committee, which turned into the Grabhorn Park Ad Hoc Committee. Brought in outside partners. They made suggestions about changes to the plan. We did the conceptual plan in 3 different ways. We directed the consultant exactly how council directed us to. They gave 3 different plans for how you could potentially develop that, and then we dropped into the master plan process. So the most recent on that is that Parks Committee voted to kind of hold on any major developments on the plan until there was more information from the needs assessment to kind of make sure that as those plans were developing, best information for what this community was looking for and wanted as a community might be able to be reflected. And that's still sits with the Parks Committee for review. Have to be reviewed, recommendation to council, as council asked for this process. So we looked at recommendations back to council.
Can I make a comment just
Go ahead, Mike.
briefly? Yeah, I think that really with the master plan, it's a new day. We can kind of figure out how and what we want to do with this particular site and make a recommendation to council. But one thing I would hope is that we're done with this by July, August, because the way we were able to develop this park, Conley Park, was with the purchase was the match for the grant. If it wouldn't been for those grants, neither of those parks would have been developed. And that's there's an opportunity for up to $750,000 of grant money to develop a component of that park. So there's agreement. I am fairly confident with the leadership of Joe Backus that we'll have a plan that can push forth in the spring of next year that help us.
And we can apply for that grant until, when is the deadline? 2025. So we do have some time.
But Mike is correct. That,
Yeah.
you know, coming out of this master plan is going to be a really
Absolutely.
driver, because without work like that and an ask like that in a plan, maybe the state doesn't fund it. You know, they're looking for something fairly concrete, and that's why we are gonna have to talk about Grabhorn some more. We do need to put something in the master plan, as Darcy mentioned tonight. Something has to go in there.
Yes.
Even if that's not the final design, we need something in there that is solid, that shows that we've had a robust community process, had a chance to go through it.
I already think just reviewing some of this data, it's already just firming up what we were already hearing in the Grabhorn.
I was just gonna say that, yeah, we have time, but it's a competitive process. There's
Yes.
no guarantee, so I would hope that we'd have at least 2 years to shoot at this. So anyway, that's just.
Typically, a grant like that will take a couple months to write to get a good, solid proposal.
Yeah.
I have a question for Mike or Isaac. Do you guys know if that specific grant is like, for example, first come, first serve, or they're just gonna award it in 2025? That,
It's money that's funded by the lottery. There's actually about 3 or 4 different really, really good grant programs that the state has. And this one's called the Local Government Lottery Grant, and it's competitive. And they like to spread the money around the state, but it's a great program. And um, when we did Concomly, actually, Alex Raines was the one who wrote that grant. So we have the talent on staff to do it. She can take time off running the city and write this. Anyway.
So it is a competitive process, so it's not first come, first serve. It is a fairly large grant, 750,000. They usually give 3 or 4 a year, so it is very competitive. This break is actually good because we did get awarded this grant twice in the relatively near past relative terms. So having a break, having the plan in the master plan, having this process around it, going through this iterative thing where we go back to the community, back to the special ad hoc committee, back to council, back to, is all going to make our chances of success better. We will have to ask for the max.
so are you planning to go after it 2024 or
Part
2025?
of that depends on what council guidance is. You know, we work for council ultimately. So as we work through goal setting, get done with the master plan and prioritization comes out, because one of the steps of this is prioritizing what happens next in terms of parks. We need to look at that and follow the plan, some aspects. So that's part of this too. There's a lot of different parts that'll move. Mike is right that as we get through the master plan, the path forward for Horn or whatever develops next.
Okay, yeah. Did you have more for city update? Okay.
So we had received question from Paul about Grabhorn and the utilities. So we're going to address that.
That's not for me, sorry.
Hmm?
That's not for me.
Oh, you were just passing that on.
I was passing that on.
So
Was
it was
the-
really from Joel,
Okay.
and Paul had passed it on to us, and we thought it would be appropriate to pass it. Still essentially see you as the Grabhorn committee, right? Question from Joel was, you know, why he felt that the utility work wasn't following the Scappoose water system master plan, because in 2020 when that was developed, that connection through that property didn't exist. There's a lot of reasons for that. 2020, we did the plan, and the plan was adopted. We were working 18, so we didn't own Grabhorn. But at that time, the best connections were through some other routes. Those other routes happened to be up in the hills. A lot more pipe work. We don't own the property. There's a lot of things that go into developing those, and so when you look at a master plan, I think really constrained by time, and Grabhorn development changes the ability for the city. Directly after that plan was adopted, more additional modeling was done, also in 2020, and we're looking at the northwest region of the city and pressure zones. Pressure zones are, the easiest way to explain it is that, like, side of the water pipes, 2 million gallon reservoir, right, coming out of it, 2 million gallons of water pushing on this pipe. As that water travels through the city and it goes downhill and uphill and it gets let off in a different system and houses, pressure goes down. So cities rely on gravity feed. Gravity to move the water. We did some modeling and we found that to get the pressure zones where we need them to be, pressure on the system, the place for that pipe is that property, the eastern edge of. Additionally, The wastewater collections master plan in 2021 identified that portion of property as an ideal place to put a water collection pipe. So the time the master plan was adopted, best guesses for that changed. We have better data. We now have that property and it's been identified for water pipe. So kind of is the best.
Mike, can you talk into the, thank you. Mike.
Local historian, okay? What happened was we had that big flood and it basically right behind, the shoe factory, the pipe went up that canyon and it slid out and you couldn't get to it. And so this is a far better plan. I'm glad that you guys are doing that. And as far as the sewer, it ran right along the creek and actually, um, it, it was exposed after that flood and, we were concerned about leakage and lines and that kind of stuff. So getting it out of that creek bank is a great thing.
I understand that like one of the concerns has been, reducing impact on the Grabhorn property that would reduce recreationable land, for lack of a better phrasing. It just so happens that the northwest portion of the city is really hard to reach, similar to, I mean, the answer is kind of like why in the beginning a road was proposed, because it's far more expeditious, cheaper, and it's identified that there's some connection in that area. Utilities, it's a similar thing. The road thing is put to bed. That's not an issue, but the utilities are the same where,
You could put a trail on top of utilities,
yeah, you can put a trail on utilities.
maintenance.
You just can't, you would want to avoid putting like bleachers over a ball field, right? Because if you ever need to work there, you'd be ripping up a valuable asset that's far costlier. So that's typically why we run utilities under streets, because we can add holes to get in there and not have to clear street.
Before we continue, we probably have about like 10 more minutes, I would say. But it's after 7, so I'm gonna need to make a motion to extend the meeting. So do I have a motion to extend the meeting past 7? Have a second? Oh, yeah. Do
only take 5 minutes though.
I have a second? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed?
Before I wrap up too, just general, if anybody has any questions about anything, now's a great time to ask. And we can talk in the public setting. Anything.
Real quick, I just want to be real fast about Earth Day. Earth Day is coming up. I believe I was contacted by Solve. The last year, just for some history, we did a Solve cleanup at Chapman Landing. We did a citywide scavenger hunt that was park-based that got people kind of into, they had to go to every single park in the city to get the answers. And then we also had an event at Heritage Park in with the library where they had uh, plants to give away that were donated by Fred Meyer and Means Nursery, and they had live music. And so we're going to be doing some things similar because we have the master planning process and we kind of have, we had some member shifting. I was planning to keep it pretty similar to last year. Last year it was mainly JJ, Kim, and I who were working on it. But if, and Brian was there to help the day of, but if anybody would like to help with that, that would be great. Essentially, JJ already has a relationship with Fred Meyer and the Means, and they get the donations and as well as the library. So she pretty much has that squared away. But if somebody wants to be there day of to help with the cleanup or help lead the cleanup or just participate in the library event and kind of Brian was there last year handing out the survey, handing out the scavenger hunt and answering questions. I believe it's April 22nd is, yeah,
You answered my question.
that was it. So that's also the same day that Solve does a Cleanup Oregon Day. And so many events, so that ties into just Earth Day in general.
Be there.
Okay, well, great. Any questions about that?
as with last year, if you need fires and whatever, let us know.
Perfect.
In the utility,
Yep, we can do, we did the newsletter, which goes in the utility bill. We did social media and
Yeah.
various things. We printed some flyers and
Yeah. And then
development of material.
I just dropped all the trash off. We collected like 13 bags of trash and some tires and some exercise equipment, all from
That's fun.
Chapman. Yeah. And,
husband.
oh yeah, that's right. You were there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a really lovely event. People came from Portland. It was a great opportunity for people to travel from other cities to see our parks. And so it became a destination, which I think is our ultimate goal for our parks. And then the scavenger hunt got people to see parks that they did not know existed. And then at the end of it, the event that JJ had at Heritage was lovely, and there was just a lot of participation. So it was really good. Mike?
One of the things we wanted to do as part of birthday was start the fountain. That'd be the time to start the fountain, and have Michael Curry, who designed it, to come out and the switch. And it was just kind of we did it for 1 year and then the COVID hit. And
Yeah. Yeah.
history.
I think our plan is to try to build on it a little bit every year. The more people who, if anybody is interested in helping out a little bit more, just reach out to me after this. But I think the more people that are willing to participate would be wonderful. Last year, like I said, we mostly had about the three of us. So I do have a day job outside of planning Earth Day events. So yeah, the more help I can get, the better off, and the more things that we can add every year.
Which day is that?
April 22nd. I believe it's a Saturday. What was that? Oh,
That is an excellent question. We are working on a timeline.
Nothing says Earth Day like a painted silo that looks like a candle. Kinda.
I do know that there was a lot of interest in a rededication at the candle, something kind of ceremonial. So
I think that would be,
we'll see.
Can you give us an update on that? I hadn't heard of progress. That'd be great to hear.
So obviously it's painted. A lot of the issues with time have had to do with supply chains around the neon and the parts for the neon. So as it is right now, the actual wick itself is being rebuilt, actually reassembled. And they're still working on some permitting for the support structure, making sure that what we put up there now will be held by the very, very old inner block silo. So still a couple things to go. I do know that Dan Roach is going to help with the design of the historical signage. The actual sign itself, like the metal sign, is going to be fabricated by Nunnally Welding. They're just north of town. They've helped out with the thing that holds the log. And then Les Waters helped out with some of the historical information for the actual display too. So it's coming along. The signs on the end, the outside of the candle have been redone. Those are going to be finished up here in the week or two. Then it's just kind of a matter of making sure that all the permits are in order and scheduling some time to get over there. Yeah. So he helped a little bit. Yep. A lot of people chipped in to help with this. We got money from the Grabhorn family to help with development. Make sure it went well. So.
okay, well, let's move on to our introductions. Scotty, I'll start with you.
I'm Scotty. Nice to meet everyone. I'll keep it really brief and short. Been Scappoose now for about 3 years, and I'm down in one of the marinas on the water in a floating home, which has been a joy. And I've been working in Parks and Recreation for a handful of years. I've done a lot of maintenance work, an understanding of what it takes to actually physically be out there every day running a park. I'm currently a park ranger with 12. So my gig, I'm doing Parks and Rec a lot. A background in planning, public policy, and management. So I've worked on some master plan with cities down in Southern Oregon. So process is not unfamiliar to me. So I'm excited to kind of get my hands back on it and be on this side of things rather than maybe the side of things, which I did. I'd be here. Excited to actually officially meet.
Did you go to U of O to get your PPM?
I did, yeah.
Did you? Great.
Graduated in 2020. Great year to graduate.
Nice. Daughter went to that same,
Oh, awesome.
same program, yeah.
Yeah, it's a really
Awesome. Welcome. Terry, go ahead.
Terry Brooks. I've been in Scappoose since the early eighties, been in the same house since 1985. My main agenda was to get involved with this for recreation, a deep background, baseball, tennis, motocross, billiards, golf. And I like to see people out moving, so kind of going towards, I want to develop some programs that seniors can be involved in, such as pickleball. Real interested in pickleball program. My father was a big influence on me as far as that. I grew up in the 70s, and my father was a founder of a tennis club, the first indoor tennis club in Klamath Falls, Oregon. He invested in it and ran the club for about 20 years. So 10 of those years, I was taking reservations and seeing how to run a tennis club. And so if there was any possibility that I could actually get a number of pickleball courts put together, I could run a program. And since I'm signed up to coach baseball, I was hoping to contribute that money to 2 Little League baseball fields. I figure grandsons in T-ball was the past year, and a lot of kids coming up in the program. Went to Warren, and there was 5 o'clock practice, 6 o'clock practice, 7 o'clock practice. 3 fields down in Warren were pretty filled up. So just the Veterans Park 2 fields, I think we're lacking in baseball fields. And I know the girls much use the high school field, and I could see a real value in getting more parks put in. I would actually try and participate in funding that if, but my main reason I was talking about the rec center, I actually have another connection. My baseball coach in Klamath Falls built Steen's Sports Park in Klamath Falls. Haven't exactly figured out how he funded it, but it's 7 baseball fields, 5 soccer fields, indoor soccer fields, indoor batting cages, and it also focuses on senior citizens. It has walking trails outside, indoor walking trails, so they can have a window of opportunity certain days of the week. Klamath Falls is a lot colder temperature, so it gets the seniors out there doing things. And the pickleball thing I think is great for seniors because I did a lot of research and was hoping to go south this winter, but the resorts in Arizona have anywhere from 10 to 20 pickleball resorts that I was looking at. So got some history with some people. These people had a huge influence on me when I was growing up. The other person was Danny Miles. He's the basketball coach at OIT institution, the college down there. He was a All-American football player in college, all conference in baseball and basketball. I was fortunate enough, he coached me in my American Legion baseball program. Between those 3 people, my dad and Dave Steen and Danny Miles, was able to be on 3 state championship baseball teams. So I've got huge desire to give back to the kids. And I love to see state championship come to Scappoose. I would even, bigger picture is I went to 2 regional tournaments and had the opportunity to go to World Series. Last time we missed out by 1 game. So it's something that I'll never forget. The families that were all involved in that, I would like to, I could bring that to the kids of this community and the families to this community. And it's kind of, I just want to give back. And I recently retired and I have some extra time. So it's a direction I'd like to go.
we're happy to have you.
Okay.
Welcome.
I don't know how I fit in parks, but I mean,
Yeah,
I'm
that-
interested in them,
That
but.
sounds like you fit in pretty well. Yeah. Good. All right. Do we have anything else before we adjourn tonight? All right, everyone, have a good night.